Loid Forger has a soft side, but when he's first introduced in Spy Family Episode 1, we don't see it. What we see instead is his ruthlessness. Let's discuss why Loid is a compelling character right from the beginning, despite us starting the series seeing some of his worst traits.
Nice little problem, eh, Watson?
We first see Loid when he's breaking a helpless young woman's heart. His reasoning, "I'm afraid I can't sense any intelligence in our conversations," he says to her. A bit brutal there. It turns out he's been using this young woman for his own ends, but for reasons that are political rather than petty. Later in the episode, Loid confronts his enemy Edgar and threatens to harm the woman he was dating, Edgar's daughter. It's not that Loid has a tough exterior and the heart of a big softie. We know for a fact that he genuinely has a cold, ruthless side. To Loid's credit, he generally directs it to heroic ends. Now I'd say Loid does get even more callous at another point in episode 1, but I'll get to that later. First, let's cover why Loid is actually likable in this episode, despite his more negative traits being on full display. To start with, let's cover an attribute that makes Loid a remarkable spy.
Is the tidiest and most orderly brain of any man alive.
He engages in enough rapid logical analysis to put Sherlock Holmes to shame. This is the trait that leads him to excel at his missions. As for these missions, Loid is completely dedicated to their success. His single-mindedness reminds me of a quote by the psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, who wrote that, "Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life to carry out a concrete assignment which demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated." Loid's missions and his overall mission to excel as a spy is hardly trivial. The stakes are set right at the episode's first scene, when we see a Western diplomat assassinated by the East. The Western spy agency believes it's all part of a plot to start a war between the two enemy nations of Westalis and Ostania. And to be clear, I love Loid as much as the next guy. We know he doesn't do his extraordinary work for fame or admiration. As an elite spy operating from the shadows, he cannot achieve either of those things or even a normal life. As his internal monologue states, marriage, conventional happiness, I got rid of those aspirations as well as my identity the day I became a spy. Of course, the next thing he reads is a coded message outlining a plan for him to get a wife and child in 7 days in order to accomplish his new mission, Operation Strix. So, he's made sacrifices. He's also inclined to be ruthless in sacrificing others. When he adopts Anya, he initially views her in a clinical way. He thinks to himself, I need to maintain a good relationship with her until the end of this mission. So, he's taking responsibility for a vulnerable child, fully expecting to abandon her at some point in the future. He explicitly thinks to himself, as soon as I'm done with this mission, I'm sending her back to the orphanage. That's the extent of our relationship. In my opinion, this is his lowest point in episode 1. Loid is so bad at dealing with Anya over the first few days that his contact Frankie says to him, perhaps jokingly, I hope you don't get reported for child abuse. And it's interesting how Loid's logical, analytical mind normally serves him well as a spy, but causes him to overthink his relationship with Anya, almost like he's a robot trying to understand human emotions. Loid's callousness in the first episode creates tension, making the audience question the extent to which he can be a father figure to Anya. The ultimate example of this is the rough midpoint of the episode, when Loid finds out that Anya is being kidnapped by his enemies, and thinks he should abandon her and start over with a new child. Even as he rescues her, he berates himself for making a mistake as a spy, going into enemy territory to rescue her. It's also at this point that we learn Loid's motivation is to create a world where children won't cry the way he did when he was helpless during the Westalis-Ostania War. This brings us back to Viktor Frankl's quote about the specific vocation or mission each of us has in life. In arguing this point, Frankl cites European philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's quote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Let's step back from the immediate events of the episode and look at Loid's backstory. He was helpless during the Westalis-Ostania War, a child forced to fend for himself in a war zone. That's horrific. Is it any surprise we sympathize with him when we realize he has turned this not into an excuse to give in to despair, but rather into motivation to excel in his role as a spy striving to protect peace? Let's tie this into Nietzsche's ideas more specifically. On the subject of freedom, Nietzsche questions his readers provocatively. Do you call yourself free? I want to hear your ruling idea and not that you have escaped from a yoke. Can you furnish yourself with your own good and evil and hang up your own will above yourself as a law? Can you be judge of yourself and avenger of your own law? To this, Loid can of course emphatically answer yes. After his past horrific trauma, he forged a new purpose for himself. When he feels he does not meet his own standards, as when he rushed in to rescue Anya, he is his own fiercest critic. When he sees an enemy threatening his purpose, no niceties of conventional morality or common decency will stop him from pursuing his concrete goal. Is that alarming or admirable? Let's step back from this more philosophical take and take a look at it simply from a storytelling perspective. Many critics would argue that a character with a distinct, powerful drive or purpose, and what's more, a purpose that is not selfish but rather selfless, is the type of character that audiences connect with most. In his book The Emotional Craft of Fiction, Donald Maas argues that in a story's opening, a deeper bond happens initially when readers are able to make immediate positive moral judgments about characters, which is to say, when they see something good in them. As I've argued, Spy Family subverts this. However, there is a caveat to this. Maas argues that qualities of strength, humor, humanity, and goodness are among the qualities that can get us to invest in a character from the beginning. And Spy Family opens with Loid showing strength from a certain point of view. By ruthlessly cutting down the woman who wants to marry him, he shows the audience his single-minded dedication to his mission and his purpose. And over the course of the episode, we come to see his hidden depths. Maas writes that overarching a good story is a cause or good bigger than oneself. The highest human good is not gaining happiness, but giving back. Happiness brings a smile and gladness of heart, and that's fine, but selfless actions bring joyful tears and enduring gratitude. And happily enough, this narrative goal aligns perfectly with what Viktor Frankl believes makes for a good goal or purpose for a person in real life. According to Frankl, being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human to encounter. To his credit, towards the end, Loid starts thinking about how to rework his plan without endangering a child in defiance of his HQ's orders. Only Anya insisting she wants to stay with him as his daughter changes his mind. It's also towards the end that Loid reflects, I think I figured out why I hate the sound of kids crying so much, because I end up remembering my own childhood. No one reached out a hand to help me. I felt alone, in despair, and so powerless that all I could do was cry. Overall, I admire Spy Family for this daring approach at introducing us to its hero, Loid Forger. They took a risk and pulled off an elegant and compelling opening to this fun and unusual show. If you enjoyed this analysis of Spy Family Episode 1, give the video a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed already. Have a great day and thank you for watching.